Developed by O'Dale Studios, a one-man development team with a lot of volunteers to help, Mother Hub is a bite-sized indie horror shooter that aims to emulate early 2000s FPSs, as well as scare the pants off of you. Built as a 2 to 3 hour experience with a $10 price tag, the best way I can describe Mother Hub is take something like Fallout but set the entire thing in one of the vaults and give it the atmosphere and scares of Dead Space and the visual fidelity of Doom 3. Oh yes, this is one of those titles that proudly wears its influences on its sleeve. In this video, I'll be lending my thoughts on Mother Hub and whether or not it's worth all the jump scares. Let's begin. For such a short experience, Mother Hub does a great job of world building. Through the course of the game, you really get a sense of how dire and messed up this vault has become, largely done with visual storytelling as well as lots of audio logs. More on those later. Right from the start, you get a moment of smart storytelling to hook you in. A woman getting warm from a fire complains about vault leadership and ends up insulting a nearby guard, who doesn't hesitate to blow her away. And this little scene is enough to show you the madness that has consumed this place, and sets a creepy tone that is maintained throughout the experience. As you progress, you'll uncover more and more about the goings-on in the vault, how the plague upheaves society, the efforts put forth to stop the disease, and the shocking revelations of what it does to the human body. Is it the most original story in the world? No, but the way it's fleshed out kept me intrigued and did pull me through the game. And a nice cherry topper is that there's multiple endings depending on your choices. Although keep your expectations in check on this, a BioWare game this is not. While the game is creepy, the writing can be pretty goofy, which for me did come off a hair cringy at times, but more often than not, it reminded me of the irreverent gags you would get from old LucasArts adventures, like Monkey Island and Sam & Max. At one point in the game, you have a conversation with a malfunctioning robot who is perfecting his various meals made from rats, an absolutely absurd and silly exchange that seems ripped straight out of those old adventure games.
Rat patties, rat bacon, rat mayonnaise, rat on the cob. Let me tell you, it is not easy to get mayonnaise from a rat.
Throughout the journey, you collect audio logs, majority of which are voiced, with performances ranging from competent to pretty dang good.
Why the secrecy? It's not like we don't all know it's being built. And for what? We can't even leave the vault.
And this is where the majority of the backstory is expressed. Oddly though, the main character, Thea, has zero voice acting. I'm curious why.
Whatever's happening here, it's spreading. We're running out of time.
Unfortunately, the audio logs are way too much of a good thing, as the game throws one at you seemingly every second. Seriously, just about every enemy you kill has an audio log. Every room you enter seems to have 2 or 3 to collect. Even in an area that might take you a few seconds to get through, will shove a pile of them on you, and some of them can be fairly lengthy. I'm not kidding, there's enough audio logs in this 2-hour experience to fill an 8-hour one. And towards the end, they became fatiguing to the point that I just started ignoring them. While I appreciate the effort, I think the dev overlooked that audio logs should be a reward for player exploration, not something to shove down their throats every other footstep. When you do that, they stop being special. Seeing as Mother Hub is a small indie from a one-man team, the graphical presentation is understandably modest. However, I think it has some solid qualities. Developed in the Unity engine, Mother Hub aims to emulate the look of early to mid-2000s shooters. Think Doom 3 or the original Prey. And while it doesn't meet their level of quality, I think it achieves their vibe, or at least is in the ballpark of their vibe. It's pretty rough around the edges. There's some modeling that looks amateurish, buggy physics, unpolished level design, and general visual jank. Where it succeeds though is in creating atmosphere. The game is full of striking views, moody hazy lighting, and plenty of disturbing imagery. And it's all used wisely to build tension. And while the game largely leans on jump scares, they are pulled off effectively. Wait, did you just see that? Mother Hub does use assets purchased from the Unity Asset Store, although this hardly bothered me as the assets are used intelligently. They feel cohesive to the environment and help to believably compose every area. The UI, however, is somewhat sloppy. While the HUD and menus generally look fine, a blaring issue is that the audio logs, text logs, and objectives are all glommed into one menu, in a giant list in fact, with nothing to differentiate them. It comes off as lazy. And in the dialogue trees, some of the text doesn't fit into the boxes. Admittedly, this is pretty minor, but it is sloppy. While Mother Hub's strengths are found in its visuals and storytelling, unfortunately its gameplay is its weakest aspect, often feeling unfocused and half-baked. For starters, level design is poor and uninspired. Despite looking cool, their layouts are overly linear and simplistic, often consisting of a handful of rooms with the occasional side area or secret. They're also painfully short. You'll typically be in one level for a few minutes before being able to continue on to the next, never really getting the chance to settle into them. And no, this isn't the sort of thing where it's one level made up of several parts with loading screens separating. Nah, each has distinctive art direction, distinctive story elements, with one main objective to complete that are mind-numbingly easy. Most of Mother Hub is defined by simplistic objectives and single-use mechanics. For example, early in the game you have a puzzle where you place a cube in a slot to power a door. The cube is not hard to find, it's just down a short hallway in a room. Now, if the ease of this puzzle was meant to teach players this mechanic so they can take on tougher iterations of it later in the game, that's one thing. But nope, this is the only time you encounter a puzzle like this. Another example is one level has a locked subway cart that needs a keycard, which is a mere few feet away on a dead body. In fact, you're more likely to find the keycard before reaching the subway cart. Sure, there's a couple enemies hovering around it, but otherwise there are no obstacles in the way of this. When you do enter the subway, there's a force field that needs to be taken down by destroying the power source, which is telegraphed by the big red power cable that leads right to the entrance you came from. You can also find a hidden keycard to bypass them instead, but when the solution is so obvious and easy to do, what's the point? Sometimes the game even robs you of a task altogether. At one later point, I was in a water channel with an objective, clearly stated in my journal mind you, to stack boxes to get out of it. Bafflingly, the boxes were already stacked and waiting for me. Was this a mistake? Clearly, the developer understands the necessary components to challenge the player, but overlooked how to actually challenge them, and neglected to iterate on many of the mechanics they introduce. And sure, you could argue the scares and atmosphere are what's meant to entertain and drive the player, but to me, that sort of stuff is frosting, and it doesn't matter how good your frosting is, if the cake is underbaked, it's not going to taste good. In terms of combat, the game has some good stuff going for it. The shooting mechanics feel good. I'd say they're in the ballpark of something like Doom 3. The weapons themselves are pretty standard, pistol, shotgun, machine gun, but they look mighty cool and feel mighty cool. Unfortunately, the combat is let down largely due to the enemy AI. While the monsters themselves are pretty creepy, a couple legit gave me the willies, pretty much all of them just bum rush you, and the few bosses featured do the same thing, the difference being they're just bullet sponges. And much like the exploration, you'll be introduced to mechanics in combat that are used once. Early on, you run into a group of zombies that are controlled by a central leader. Cool idea, but it's never seen again. In a few portions, you have to break these big fleshy things that spawn floating balloon enemies. That's never seen again. And one of the best moments of the game is when you're ambushed by a horde of zombies. Again, only happens once. These are all solid ideas. Why weren't they iterated on? There is so much more gameplay that could have been squeezed out of these concepts. There's a lot of things that bump me with Mother Hub, but I think my ultimate issue with it is that it feels like it's trying to take the 10-hour plus experiences of games like Doom 3 or Dead Space and cram it into 2 hours. Like, imagine playing the Cliff Notes versions of those games. And while it hits some of the same notes of those titles and creates some good scares and story moments, because it's trying to cram in so much, it ends up feeling unfocused, rushed, and messy, and is far from the fulfilling experience of its influences. Simply put, its scope is way too broad. Would I recommend Mother Hub? No. But at the same time, it is a $10 game, and if you can overlook the gameplay issues, it can make for a decent spooky time. Otherwise, there's just better options out there for this type of experience. I do hope the developer learns from it though and keeps trucking. Truly, they have good instincts when it comes to building tension through visuals and storytelling, but they need to beef up their game design fundamentals and scope their games more realistically. Perhaps Mother Hub can be a stepping stone to something greater. But that's it for me. What are your thoughts on Mother Hub? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like, subscribe, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.